And therefore, he followed a very different policy towards the local Muslims, very much different from what Johannes led in Ethiopia itself. Johannes was kind of a crusader who, to put it mildly, maltreated the Muslims. But Alula,
and I think it boils down to what Eritreans believe Alula did in Eritrea, not least his interactions with Walter Michael. How do you think Alula should be seen in Eritrea?
He was the embodiment of the historical option of Eritrea being a part of Ethiopia, which of course is not the line followed by the modern Eritrean movement. And therefore most of Eritreans today don't like the historical figure of Ras Alula. And the historical memory goes back to episodes that can support the idea that Alula was a colonialist, was brutal, was treacherous. Around the story of Walter Michael, the last local ruler, so to speak, that Alula tricked him and sent him to Johannes, who put him in Debre Tabor, and Johannes put him on the Ambasalama for the next decade or so, ending what used to be kind of autonomy of the Barab Melash and Hamasen. So it's remembered fully, and also some episodes that Alula was not a very perfect politician and person. Out of frustration, for instance, in 1886, and my memory is being challenged with age, when he was sent by Johannes and maneuvered by the British to go to Kassala in the Sudan, and he failed. He didn't want to go there. He wanted to keep an eye on Massawa and the Italians there. But it was strict maneuver to go there, and there was malaria there, and it was overly ambitious enterprise, and he failed there. And then I think that out of frustration, he massacred the people of the Barya and the Kunama, the tribes there in Western Eritrea that were supposed to supply him with cattle and water. And this slaughter, the massacre of the Barya and Kunama, is remembered by Eritreans today. From their perspective, it was the brutal colonialist. And there are other related episodes that, but I want to emphasize the following. Alula wanted to modernize the Asmara power base of East, and his model for modernization, not out of enlightenment, but out of his ambition and understanding that he needs more power, he wanted to connect Asmara to Massawa, the trade from Massawa. Massawa was already a kind of Red Sea major port, and merchants from all over, Greeks and the Indians and what have you, were there. And it was at the time, roughly the time that Menelik established Addis Ababa in the south. Roughly speaking, I would say Alula wanted to do the same for Asmara. In Tigray itself, there was not much of urbanization. But Alula wanted to create an urban center based on the line with Massawa, and therefore he followed a very different policy towards the local Muslims, very much different from what Johannes led in Ethiopia itself. Johannes was kind of a crusader who, to put it mildly, maltreated the Muslims. But Alula cultivated the merchants and the caravans to Massawa. And out of the little village of Asmara, he built the beginning of what is today. Of course, later on the Italians came and made it a little Rome. The Ras Alula took on the hills of there were his compound, and by Italian sources there were some 10,000 soldiers, mostly from Tigray. They sort of colonized the land. Alula enacted them portions of land and so on, and enabled them to marry local ladies and so on. But out of this ambition to modernize the Marab Melash and make his own power base, he conducted a very kind of a modern policy.